Well, we don't apologize for wins here on Locked On Horned Frogs, but I was not super impressed with that effort on offense. I actually felt pretty good about the way the defense played tonight. We're live here on YouTube. We're doing a post-game show. You can chime in on the stream. Would love to hear from you guys what your thoughts are. We'll do it next here on Locked On Horned Frogs.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day, live edition of the show. We're here just kind of rocking and rolling after this game. Frogs defeat Nicholls State 41-6 this evening, so they are now 1-1. Bounce back from that loss against Colorado, win the football game, and ultimately the score looked more impressive than it was. It was 24-6 at the end of the third quarter, and TCU could not convert on a 4th and 2, which was sort of the story of the night. Just a really rough night offensively. Did have a special teams touchdown, a blocked punt that turned into a touchdown. Blake Newell scooping it up and scoring. So really the offense scored 34 points, scored one late touchdown. Jordan Bailey, who was one of the positives in my mind tonight, he gets it done late in that game with Josh Hoover at quarterback. But overall, just not the most impressive performance from this football team. You know, there's a saying I really like. I heard it from Bob Sturm. I don't know where he got it from. But he says you don't apologize for wins, right? Like ultimately, you know, either you win or lose the game. That's how you judge these things. And TCU took care of business. They got it done. A lot of times last year they had games where didn't necessarily play their best football or the cleanest brand of football from start to finish, but still won the football game. But I'll say this. In an FCS game, and what we like to call a paycheck game, meaning you paid Nicholls State to come in here and basically – you know, give you a little glorified scrimmage before you Houston coming up next week. And Houston had their own trouble tonight. They actually lost to Rice in double overtime, I believe, in the Battle of the Bayou Bucket. But in a game like this, you expect to win handily, which by the final score they did. But here's my frustration. And we talked about this last week, and I'll be interested to see. I'll try to kind of keep my eye on Sonny Dykes' post-game press conference comments as I'm doing this, but obviously it's going to be kind of tough. First time I've gone live, so just bear with me here. But Sonny last week was like, we didn't come out ready to play. Colorado was ready to rock and roll. They were more excited to play. They were more ready to play. They looked like the team that was more well coached. They played a cleaner football game. And so really my big overarching theme all week, I didn't spend a lot of time talking about Nicholls State specifically in their personnel. Mentioned a few guys that are good. Pat McQuaid can make some things happen. He made a few plays tonight. Ryan Leaf was very excited to watch him play. He was super impressed with what McQuaid did. Quincy Brown, the former Horned Frog, is on that roster as well. You know, they have a really good outside linebacker. But overall, I thought this was a football game where TCU, they need to take care of business. They need to focus on themselves and just play with energy, play with effort, and get it done. And I think defensively they did that for the most part. I know people are frustrated even with the defense today. And I get it. There were some long drives. Nicholls State converted a number of third downs. Don't love to see that. You know, the pressure wasn't a fantastic night. They ended up having 3 sacks. I think 2 of those, though, were on the final drive. Some of the young guys came in and played with a lot of energy and effort. They were hitting guys hard. They were creating turnovers. They're kind of causing havoc. I thought the starters played well. They bounced back from a rough day last week against Colorado. Now, did they give up some long drives? Yes. Nicholls State had the ball really for the majority of the third quarter. Did they give up too many third down conversions? They did. Were there still some missed tackles that I would like to see cleaned up? Sure. I would have loved to have seen more pressure on their QB tonight. But, you know, only 77 yards rushing for the Colonels. I thought secondary did a much better job today. Guys were breaking on the ball, making plays, breaking up passes. And I'm not going to complain a lot about the defense tonight. I think they did fine. It was a nice bounce back. I really liked what I saw from the second unit late in that football game. Redon Fontenette had a huge hit on a receiver who was coming inside. on a pattern. Chase Biddle had a fumble recovery. Vernon Glover had a diving interception that was super impressive. Overall, defensively, I thought they did their job. Offensively, last week, things were great. And they were down a couple guys tonight. Dalen Wright didn't play. Ted Emmerich, the play-by-play guy, mentioned that he was dealing with a calf strain in practice, which is not great news. I liked what I saw from Dalen in that opener. And he was one of the guys that I came away from that game like, all right, this is great. He's moving along. He's getting it done. But he wasn't available. I didn't see Savion play tonight. I know he was dressed out. Jalen Robinson got the start at that X receiver position, but Steven Johnson said Savion was dressed out. If I missed him, my apologies. And somebody can let me know here in the YouTube comments or on Twitter, but I didn't see him play. Now they got the ball to Warren Thompson a lot. He had 8 receptions for 92 yards. Jalen Robinson, 5 for 39. Jordan Bailey had a nice night, 61 yards receiving, including a touchdown catch from Josh Hoover. But, a lot of the guys that they were targeting heavily last week weren't super involved. Jared Wiley, only 2 catches for 9 yards. Jack Besh, 1 catch for 6 yards. But, that in itself is not super concerning. Here's the thing that concerned me about tonight. I thought last week, and I'm talking about the offense, I thought last week the O-line played well. I mean, I know some people had complaints about the O-line, concerns about the O-line, but overall, I thought the offensive line played really well against Colorado. They protected Chandler Morris. They ran the ball super effectively. Well, tonight, honestly, they got shoved around. I mean, Amani Bailey, 19 carries for 67 yards. Chandler Morris had 6 carries for 63 yards. So he was almost your leading rusher tonight. And a lot of that was just breakdowns defensively by Nicholls. Everybody's got their back turned in coverage, and Chandler just decides he's going to rock and roll. Amani only had 3.5 yards per carry tonight. The team only averaged 3.5 yards per carry tonight against Nicholls State. I mean, they could not establish a run game. And Nicholls State was playing close to the line of scrimmage. They were bringing some pressure. It looks like those defensive linemen were stunting and slanting a lot. But, I mean, you should be able to push around this football team. And some of these guys, I don't want to single out individuals, but I know Andrew Coker had kind of a rough first half and a holding penalty that set them back, got beat on a few plays that led to some loss of yardage. But this offense, man, just pre-snap penalties, drive-killing plays, really had 2 impressive drives in the second half. But honestly, that first half, a lot of what they did was just explosive plays. Chandler Morris had a touchdown run on a breakdown in coverage where Nicholls State was selling out to cover, the receivers, and he found a hole and broke it open and got in there and scored. Had a nice little drive where Jordan Bailey had a long run on a little jet sweep, ended up hitting Jalen Robinson on a pass over the middle for a touchdown. And that was exciting. But other than that, not a lot in the first half. In the second half, hardly got the ball at all. Went 3 and out on their first drive. Had a little something going on the second drive of that game in the third quarter in the second half, and stalled out on a 4th down. And then finally sort of got in a rhythm at the end of that ball game in the 4th quarter. But here's my complaint, just kind of overarching complaint. They took care of business. They won. But I really thought that this would be a team, and this is now 2 weeks in a row that I've been wrong about this. And it's starting to really stay in my mind. I don't want to say it's weighing heavily on me because I don't feel like that is a proper way to describe it. But it's something I'm watching with this football team. I thought they'd come out pissed off tonight, right? Okay, last week, lose a game to what I think is a good Colorado team. Colorado went and beat Nebraska this afternoon. I can't remember the final score of the game off the top of my head. I think it was 36-14 or something like that. But Buffs win, and they struggled in the first half offensively, but then they kind of kicked it into overdrive and won that football game. They showed that, they got athletes all over the field. Shadur Sanders looked great. All that being said, that was a game that TCU could have won. You could argue they probably should have won, right? But they didn't. And so you're 0-1 now. You're a team with high expectations. I thought, come out, play a really clean football game, and just roll over Nicholls. And I guess ultimately, based on the scoreboard, they did, but it didn't feel like it. Am I being too hard on this team? Like, I don't know. I expected more tonight. And this is now another week where I don't know what the disconnect is. Like, Sonny has talked about how this group, before the season, he thought this group had a chip on their shoulder, that they were ready to get this done, that they're ready to show that last year wasn't a fluke. I mean, was it just that last year's team had so much player leadership on it, and it was truly like a player-led team, that this year's team hasn't found out who those guys are yet, and because of that, they're not really ready to go? Maybe, but tonight, I thought, again, what is the disconnect for this coaching staff, that it doesn't feel like they're getting the best from these guys from the jump, from the word go, when they play the football game? First drive tonight, had things moving a little bit, a couple drops, stall it out, pre-snap penalties. And we'll talk about some of the vanilla play calling in a minute. We'll talk more about the offense and just some of the play calling things that frustrated me from tonight's game in a minute. And then also we'll discuss some of the positives from tonight. I mean, there were some good things. I really thought, I know, just kind of based on some of the reactions I've been looking around and seeing, there were some people that are still frustrated with the defense. I thought the defense overall played well tonight. Do they need to get off the field more on third down? Yeah, they do. Did they let Pat McQuaid kind of run around and make some plays he probably shouldn't have? Yeah, but they kept Nicholls State out of the end zone. For the most part, they were stalling out drives, especially in the first half. And I thought, aside from that third quarter, they played with good intensity. Still need to clean up some of the little things, missed tackles, which, I mean, that turns into a big thing when you don't get guys on the ground. But overall, thought this defense played pretty well. We'll take a quick break here and then come back. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, live post-game edition following that game against Nicholls State. All right, Nutrafol. Nutrafol is a great product to use if you have thinning hair. Go to Nutrafol.com/men, and you can search there. If you use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, you can get $10 off your first subscription. I've said this before, like thinning hair, losing your hair, it can be very nerve-wracking. It can be very unsettling. It can make you really self-conscious. Don't let it happen. You can choose to have great hair growth, and it can be healthy for you. Nutrafol provides a whole-body approach for men that promotes healthier hair, and there's no drugs, no compromises, just better hair. A lot of men think losing their hair is inevitable. 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime. It's normal, but it does not have to be your fate. You can get ahead of it with Nutrafol. Are you tired of weakening or thinning hair? Do you want your hair to reach your full potential? Visible thickness, improved growth, all those things. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. It's clinically shown to improve your hair growth and scalp coverage. It's physician formulated, natural, science-backed, and drug-free. They have patented technology that provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your health. Again, go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their health wellness quiz today to find out what product will work best for you. Take that first step to visibly healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Again, that promo code is LOCKEDONCollege. Nutrafol, use their products today. So, yeah, offensively, man, tonight I thought Kendall Briles was really vanilla. Not a lot of variety in this football game, not a lot of creativity. And honestly, I get that, you don't want to show a ton to this opponent, right? This is an FCS game. You're not trying to break out a lot of trick plays and do a lot of things that you can put on film. With Big 12 play coming up starting next week, you play Houston, then SMU, and then you hit the thick of Big 12 play from then on out. But still, I mean, even if you're not going to do some of those things, you can throw the ball down the field. I don't know what's going on there. They are not pushing the ball down the field at all. And we talked a little bit about, the injuries on offense or in the receiving core, the players that were potentially unavailable. Didn't have Dalen Wright available tonight. Also, looks like Savion Williams was not around. And so that makes a difference. Okay. Those are two guys that are going to get it done on the outside. And I know Chandler Morris doesn't have a rocket arm. He's not somebody that's going to throw the ball 75 yards in the air or something like that. Max Duggan was more of a deep ball thrower. That was more natural for him. But I don't buy into the idea that Chandler just has such a noodle arm that he can't push the ball down the field. Like, you should be able to push the ball down the field and do it from the outside. And he made some good throws tonight. Overall, I thought Chandler was impressive. I mean, he was efficient. Let me get his stat line up for you. 26 of 30, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Also had a rushing touchdown, made good decisions. But the play calling tonight, I just didn't get a handle on it. Now, part of it is, and this is a concerning thing, we talked about it earlier, couldn't really run the football on Nicholls State. That's not great, right? Like, that's not what you want. But, man, it doesn't have to be all the time. But the occasional fade, the occasional corner route, it just feels like everything is a cross, a mesh concept, a lot of slants tonight, a lot of kind of just in-breaking routes immediately. And they moved the chains doing that. But I would have liked to have seen some more, I don't even know if you want to call it risk-taking, but just opening up this offense a little bit more and not feeling like everything is just a 6 to 7 yard throw. And the screen passes tonight and the throws behind the line of scrimmage were just killing me. 3rd and 2 early in the third quarter and trying to get the ball out to Warren Thompson. And Warren Thompson had a nice night. He's a veteran receiver. He's done a nice job through his career, but he's not really known for like his straight line speed or his elusiveness. I mean, he's kind of a big body outside wide receiver. I don't get the call, and I don't get why you're running it to Thompson. And then on the next drive, 4th and 2, they tried basically the exact same play to the other side to their boundary with Jalen Robinson. And like, Jalen Robinson's fast, they call him the Flash. And so that makes more sense. Like, that part of it, getting him the ball in that situation makes a lot more sense. But why are you throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage? Like, what is the deal with these swing routes on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2? I just didn't understand it. It felt like in the third quarter of that football game, it felt like TCU was just trying to get out of there healthy. Like, they had a lead. It wasn't it was lopsided. It wasn't like the game was completely out of reach, but Nicholls State wasn't able to move the ball. And so, 24-6 felt like about 40-6. But they were just kind of having a good time, humming along, trying out some different things. I don't get that. It didn't fool Nicholls State. They were out there in pursuit. I mean, you had a couple blockers, but, they were there. They were ready for it on both occasions. I didn't understand either of those play calls. And then just some plays tonight that weren't super smart, right? Like, not to pick on them, but I remember Warren Thompson catching a pass beyond the sticks and then sort of turning around and running sideline to sideline. And actually, when he did that, he ran like 3 or 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Some pre-snap penalties, just not the cleanest games. But let's get to some positives, because they did win tonight. They won by a big margin. And I like some of the things I saw. And so offensively, Jordan Bailey with a good night. Had that touchdown catch from Josh Hoover. Overall, 3 catches for 61 yards. And this was a guy that they got like shortly after they landed Amani Bailey. And both these players are explosive. And they got him ball in the pop pass that ended up being an explosive play. And then he caught that ball in the crossing pattern. There's a lot of dudes on this team that can run, that can get after it, that can go sideline to sideline, and get up the field and get things done. And he's one of them. So it was cool to see him more involved in the offense. I thought Chandler Morris was good tonight. I thought he was, making good decisions. Felt like he had a good sense for where he was going. Still a lot of just kind of one read and go, right? Like getting locked in on a guy, throwing him the football, and not necessarily going through your progressions. But in fairness to him, in a lot of cases, those throws were open. I mean, he was 26-30 tonight, so he was making good decisions. Amani Bailey, he did his best. He was getting some tough yardage. But offensively, I liked what I saw from those guys. Warren Thompson ended up having a good stat line. Like, they put some things together later on in the game. I like that throw to JoJo Earl, like that route combination, getting JoJo Earl the football, a little out route for that touchdown early in the fourth quarter. There were some good things there. It just wasn't consistent. And it still feels like this offense is just not completely in a rhythm. I don't really know how else to articulate it. It's like they have some explosive plays. They'll get downfield. You can tell there's playmakers here. I think the wide receivers room is not as good as I hoped it would have been or thought it would have been going into the season. But you can tell there's playmakers here that can get out in space and make things happen. But it just doesn't seem like they're really, at least tonight, really sustaining drives, marching down the field, kind of. And you don't have to do it methodically, but 7 to 10 play drives where you're just getting chunk yardage almost every play and kind of doing what you want. Didn't feel like they had that. Just not a super clean game, but those players stood out to me. I thought they did a good job. I thought it was cool that they got Jalen Robinson more involved in this football game, especially early. He was the guy that Sonny Dykes talked about, like, hey, we need to get in the football more. We want to get in the football more. And so you see the advantage of having him in the slot, in space, making plays. I like how that worked and how they got in the football. His stat line didn't end up being super impressive. 5 catches for 39 yards and a touchdown. But in the first half, they found a way to get him the football and do it effectively, which was really cool. Defensively, I honestly thought the defense played well tonight. Still pretty base coverage, pretty vanilla stuff. But they rallied the ball, got some pressures, got McQuaid moving around the pocket, made some things happen. Overall, liked what I saw from this defense. Marcel Brooks was on the field. Not a huge night for him in the stat sheet, but had a quarterback pressure, which was cool. Had a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. I like his speed. I like that he can be disruptive. I like the athleticism that he can bring to the field. Nnamdi Obaizor, 9 tackles, 4 solo tackles. He had a nice game. Chad Banks was more involved tonight. Josh Foster had a couple plays where he came up and made some things happen. Jamal Johnson had some tackles, a freshman. I mentioned Don Fontenette, the freshman that came in as well and had a big hit in the fourth quarter. Vernon Glover with an interception. Chance Biddle with a fumble recovery. Had the blocked punt. Joe Jorrell had a nice punt return where I thought he might break it, completely for a touchdown. Didn't quite do that. But some good things on special teams. And speaking of special teams, we'll talk about how the half ended in a minute because loved what I saw from Griffin Kell. And so we'll discuss that next and kind of wrap things up. It's Locked On Horned Frogs instant reaction. TCU beats Nicholls tonight 41-6. Your team every day. All right, Game Time app. They got a deal going on right now. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Just download the Game Time app today. If you need last-minute tickets or if you just need tickets in general, Game Time is the app to go to. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know about Game Time before they started sponsoring with us. Typically would use other secondary market apps. And I was like, Game Time, I'll give it a try. I really like it. I like a lot of the features they have. My favorite one is that they show you where your seat is. You get that picture of, okay, this is where I'm sitting, right? Like, this is going to be great. And so it's very clear. It's very easy to see. And it's not just sports, music, theater shows, comedy shows, whatever type of event you want to see, it's there. The Game Time app, they're going to bring it to you today. And if you're interested in, TCU at Houston, that game coming up next week, they have tickets for as low as $19, $25, $30. And so download the Game Time app today. Use that promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off. The tickets go straight to your phone. You don't have to worry about printing them out or is it going to go to, where am I going to find it? They just go straight to your phone. It's easy to navigate. App is easy to navigate. Game Time, official sponsor of the Locked On Network. Okay, one thing I liked from this evening was the last drive of the first half. And I guess let me say this quickly. So TCU is going to play Houston next week. Rice defeated Houston tonight in the Battle of the Bayou Bucket 43-41. Houston won their first game of the season against UTSA, which we know is one of the best group of 5 schools in the country. Jeff Traylor's done a nice job there, 17-14 victory in their season opener. Well, tonight they fell to Rice, and JT Daniels had a huge game, 28-42. Yeah, that's right. JT Daniels is at Rice now. 28-42, 401 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's had a winding college journey. Started at USC, then went to Georgia, then went to West Virginia, was their starter last year, and is now at Rice. And so the Owls, they actually jumped out to like a 28-0 lead in that ball game. Houston roared back, tied it up, but then could not get the 2-point conversion in double overtime to extend that football game. So Houston's 1-1, TCU's 1-1. Houston's Big 12 opener, not just season opener, but first game in Big 12 history. That's going to happen. That's going to go down next Saturday night, and so we'll get Big 12 play up and rolling next week. Good team, even with the loss tonight. I think that's a good football team. That's going to be a tough game. Big test for TCU coming as they try to figure this out and get things straightened out. So that's your kind of your early primer on next week's opponent. But one thing I really liked in this game tonight. So TCU's up 24-0, and I should say one thing that kind of killed momentum tonight too. Offense was rolling. Chandler Morris gets a first down. His helmet pops off. Right there in the red zone. I think they were down like the 15-yard line, maybe inside the 10. Doesn't matter. But Josh Hoover comes in. He has to come in because Chandler Morris's helmet pops off. So Chandler has to sit for a play. Hoover botches the exchange on the handoff, and Nicholls State recovers. And so they go down, they kick a field goal. But anyway, that was a swing in the game because if TCU scores there, if they get 3, it's 27-0 or 24-0. Excuse me, it's 21-0 at the time. If they score there, it's 28-0. But bottom line is that would have helped the score be more lopsided. Also, you're probably feeling pretty good going at halftime. Nicholls State comes down, they kick a field goal. TCU gets the ball back with like 30 seconds left, makes a couple throws. And I didn't love this part of it. They had the ball at like the Nicholls State 45-yard line. Chandler had a scramble. He slid down there. He got 8 seconds left. They took a timeout. So 8 seconds is not a lot of time. And so they throw it out there they hit Wiley on a little crosser, a little out pattern, and he gets down to the 38. And so it would have been a long field goal, but there's only 2 seconds left. So your chances are a long field goal or you throw a Hail Mary down there. Well, Sonny and the staff, they kind of sit there for a minute, and then finally they rush the field goal team out there. And you got to make that decision before the snap. You got to know in your mind what yard line are we going to be at where we say, okay, yeah, we're going to kick the field goal. But they didn't have that immediately in their head, and so they rushed the field goal team out there. And Griffin Kell, you see on the broadcast, like Jordan Sandy, the holder, Griffin's like kind of going through his warm up, and the play clock's ticking down. And Jordan's like, dude, we got to go. Like, you got to back up, get your feet set. Griffin hit a 57-yard field goal, which is super impressive at the buzzer there. And the execution was lacking there a little bit on that drive, but bottom line was they got in field goal range. He hit that field goal, and it was a nice sort of kind of feel-good way to go into the halftime break with a 24-3 lead. But that was huge. I thought that was great and just a nice way to get to half. Overall, though, I don't know. I would have loved to have seen more energy, a cleaner football game. Really, though, mainly on the offensive side of the ball. I thought defensively, team did their job. They were good enough. It's just offensively, it wasn't working out for the Frogs. And I don't have a great answer for what that is or what they have to do to get this figured out. But man, there's some concerning things for this football team as they roll along and get ready to play Houston next week. Let me get to some of the comments here. Clint Foster says, hammer that panic button. Man, I'm not quite there yet, but it was a very uninspiring performance tonight. I'll just say that. I think a lot of people are going to wake up tomorrow because obviously like Texas-Bama was going on tonight. And yeah, I saw what happened there. Texas won that football game by 2 scores and honestly could have won that game by more. They looked really impressive. They got that done in Tuscaloosa. But that was a stacked Saturday night window. Like Texas defeats Alabama, Oregon over Texas Tech in a good football game. So all that to say, not a lot of people outside of us were watching TCU Nicholls State on ESPN Plus, and I think a lot of people will just look at the box score tomorrow morning on their phone and be like, "Oh, hey, TCU won by 35 points against an FCS team, whatever." But if you watched it, you could tell it wasn't a dominating performance, or it certainly didn't feel like it. And there's a lot to clean up here. And I realized like the coaching staff could have walked into this game with a mentality of, we're not going to show a lot. We're just going to get this done, take a very business-like approach. But, man, I would have liked to have seen a more dominant effort from this football team. Ron says this is the place to get all the best info. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Joe Blankenship said young freshman defensive players looked mean and hungry to play. Yeah, they did. I mean, they came out there with a lot of energy and effort, and I can appreciate that. And that's what I wanted to see from everybody, right? Like that's what you wanted to see from the jump tonight. Byron Bailey said got to start the young guys on both sides of the ball. Offense is too basic, takes too many plays to score, gives too many opportunities to make mistakes. Yeah, I mean, I'm there with you, man. It just the play calling confused me tonight. And when I guess to your point, like when they did have good drives, it was based off explosive plays. But it's not because they're pushing the ball down the field. It's really because they're just kind of getting the ball to some guys in space that can make things happen, and they are making it happen. But a lot was left to be desired from this team offensively tonight. Zoom play says they played really good tonight. Still need to work on some stuff, but he has confidence. They'll be ready for Houston. And, man, I hope you're right. Like, that's what I want to happen as well. And maybe that's was kind of the approach the coaching staff brought into this game is let's just get out of here healthy, feeling good, and move on. But after that loss last week, I would have loved to have seen some more fire, some more energy, some more innovation all across the board. Well, thanks for joining me tonight, guys. If it was kind of disjointed or clunky at times, it felt that way to me, but it's also the first time I've done kind of a live YouTube broadcast like this, so I appreciate you bearing with me. I'm going to have coverage all week long. We're going to get you ready for that Houston game. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. TCU wins tonight 41-6. It's your team, and we do it every day.